Hi everyone and welcome to this very special video. This is my Arrow collection update video. Yeah, so I made one like a year ago and now I'm making another one but updated. So I'm adding all the stuff from Arrow I got since last time. I will only say the name of the movie, show you the edition, and then just read what it's about and move on, because otherwise we will be here forever. Yeah, so it's not alphabetical either, so I'm just starting, and at the end I will show you what I got from the latest Arrow sale. Yeah, okay, let's start. So Deadly Outlaw Rekka looks like this. Konisada is on a violent and surreal road trip as he searches for those responsible for the death of his gang boss. But with a violent temper and a mouthy demeanor, he's quick to find trouble with enemies and Yakuza allies alike. Can he track down and avenge his fallen master before he's cut down by a bullet himself? Okay, the next one is The Deadly Spawn. So I'm showing you the DVD versions first. Two foolish campers witness the crash and investigate. Oh, something awful is coming, hurtling through the void in a meteor that's on a collision course with Earth. What terrifying entry in the annals of horror will be unleashed when the sinister intergalactic payload smashes into our planet? Answer: The Deadly Spawn. Two foolish campers witness the crash and investigate. They become the first eviscerated victims of the alien menace. Soon, a small heartland American town will be under siege as the carnivorous from outer space multiply and feast on the locals. Can a gang of plucky kids stand up to these invaders from another world? Will the planet be overwhelmed? Find out in The Deadly Spawn. Yes. Island of Death. Yeah. Greece is transformed into a bloodbath of sex, death, and sadism, when an English couple arrive for a perverse rampage of lust and murder through the sleepy streets of a quiet island. Yeah, nice and romantic. Okay, Slaughter High. And I've reviewed this one, you can go and check it out. When the alumni of an all-American high school make a trip to attend a class reunion, they reconnect with their pasts in ways more bloody and fatal than they could possibly imagine in the 80s slasher classic Slaughter High. Yeah. And the last DVD is Opera, or Terror at the Opera. Yes. So, get ready for Symphony of Terror. Dario Argento directs this blood-drenched giallo that'll leave you as helpless as its killer's victims. Yeah. Moving on. Night of the Comet. 18-year-old Reggie misses out on the event of a lifetime when she ditches watching the comet in favor of copying off with the projectionist at the cinema where she works. But this turns out to be a wise move when, the next day, she discovers that the entire population has been reduced to piles of red dust, leaving only Reggie, her sister, Sam, and a handful of other survivors to fend off the roving gangs of glassy-eyed zombies. Nightbreed. From the mind of writer-director Clive Barker, the macabre visionary responsible for Hellraiser and Candyman, comes Nightbreed, a nightmare-induced fantasy set in worlds like nothing you've ever experienced before, one through which will leave you questioning who the real monsters are. By night, Aaron Boone dreams of Midian, a hidden subterranean world where monsters have created a haven from humanity. Under pressure from his girlfriend, Laurie, he attends psychotherapy sessions, unaware that his shrink, Dr. Decker, is setting him up to take the fall for a series of violent murders. Convinced he no longer belongs in the human world, Boone goes in search of Midian, not realizing that the real killer has plans for both him and the colorful cast of outsiders who call it home. One Missed Call Trilogy. Yes, this is a trilogy about, you get the phone call or you get a text message, but it's from the future. And you hear yourself pretty much die, but in the future. Yeah, this is so number 1, 2, and 3. Nice little trilogy edition. People Under the Stairs. Yes. So, Wes Craven, the master of terror who brought you the infamous The Last House on Left, invites you inside another house of horror. Fool may be a streetwise kid, but he makes a a decidedly bad decision when he agrees to assist a family friend in the robbery of their landlord's imposing homestead. What begins as a routine break-in soon takes a sinister turn as the would-be robbers find themselves trapped inside and face to face with the terrible secrets which lurk within the building's walls and under the stairs. Yeah. Rabid. First come the shiver, then you turn rabid. Celebrated Canadian cult auteur David Cronenberg followed up his startling feature-length debut, Shivers, with this intense and gory thriller, which expands upon the venereal disease theme of that film. This time unleashing it on the whole of downtown Montreal with terrifying consequences. When beautiful Rose winds up in a terrible motorcycle crash, she's rushed to a nearby clinic where she's treated by Dr. Kelloyd, who seizes the opportunity to test out his revolutionary new skin graft technique. The surgery appears successful and Rose seems restored to full health. But all is not as it should be. Rose has been transformed into a contagious bloodsucker, endowed with a bizarre needle-like protrusion in her armpit, with which she drains the blood from those unfortunate enough to cross her path. Yeah. Lily, but Lily Taylor is in this. The Addiction. Yeah. The mid-90s were a fertile period for the vampire movie. Philosophy student Kathleen is dragged into an alleyway on her way home from class by Casanova and bitten on the neck. She quickly falls ill but realizes this isn't any ordinary disease when she develops an aversion to daylight and a thirst for human blood. So, Battle Royale. Yeah. In a world where teenagers have no respect and adults are losing control, there can only be one solution. Battle Royale. Now see what happens. We let a high school class loose on an island, arm them, and then give them a simple choice. Kill your friends or have them kill you. With poison, crossbows, machetes, and dynamite. Beat Takeshi Kitano is a teacher pushed to the edge by his unruly charges. Kidnapped and gassed, his class wakes up with exploding metal rings around their necks. If they rebel, they could lose their heads. Now they have 3 days, and only one is permitted to survive this grisly battle to the death. Classic, so good. Okay. The Baby. Yeah, still traumatized by the loss of her husband, well-meaning social worker Anne Gentry throws herself into her latest assignment, the case of Baby, a 21-year-old man with the mind of an infant who crawls, cries, and has yet to make it out of nappies. But Baby's family, the tyrannical Mama, Wadsworth, and her 2 demented daughters, aren't the only ones with a warped conception of familial relations, and the full horror only begins when Anne sets her sights on liberating the drooling man-child, and in so doing unleashes the wrath of the Wadsworth women. Jan Reanimator. Finally being held accountable for his catastrophic experiments in reanimating the dead, Dr. Herbert West finds himself incarcerated at a maximum security penitentiary. With the arrival of a new prison doctor who happens to be an enthusiastic student of West's work, the medical deviant is afforded the opportunity to resume his grisly studies, this time on his fellow inmates, with predictably hair-raising results. Black Mama, White Mama. Lee, a tough prostitute, and Karen, a revolutionary, are admitted to a tough woman's prison where almost immediately they clash. Packed off to a maximum secure prison, their transport is ambushed by Karen's guerrilla friends, and the 2 escape into the Filipino jungle. Chained together and with differing escape plans, their clash intensifies as Lee wants to retrieve a stash of stolen cash to get her off the island, and Karen wants to rejoin her revolutionary group. Okay, and then we have the Hellraiser box. So it contains 1, 2, 3. And then we have the Herschel Gordon Lewis box which contains 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14 movies. Yeah, I'm not going to read all of them. Yeah, no, just showing the box. They're a really cool one. Okay. Killer clowns from outer space. Clowns can be terrifying at the best of times, especially when they're killer clowns from outer space. When Mike and his girlfriend Debbie turn up at the local police station warning that a gang of homicidal alien clowns have arrived in the town of Crescent Grove, the cops are naturally skeptical. Talk of popcorn, firing guns, and a spaceship shaped like a circus tent out in the woods hardly helps to convince them. But they soon realize that, yeah, this is true. So, they have to fight the clowns. Lake Michigan Monster. All aboard! The combined spirits of H.P. Lovecraft, early Sam Raimi, and Mystery Science Theater 3000 inhabit this action-packed tale of nautical daring-do and monster mayhem. Winner of the Audience Award for Best International Feature at the 2019 Fantasia Film Festival. On the shores of Lake Michigan, the eccentric Captain Seafield enlists a colorful crew of misfits in a bid to slay the hellish sea monster that prowls the murky depths. Life Force. When a space shuttle crew finds a mysterious spacecraft containing 3 human-looking creatures in a state of suspended animation, they bring them back to Earth for further investigation. It's only then that the scientists discover they are in fact a race of space vampires that feed off people's life force rather than their blood. Motel Hell. It takes all kind of critters to make Farmer Winston fritters. Cackle, the brother and sister team behind the finest smoked meats in the country. They also run the friendly Motel Hello. And no matter how many times you've seen Psycho or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you can be sure that everything will be perfectly above board here, as Vincent's brother Bruce is the local sheriff. Yeah. The Mutilator. When Ed receives a message from his father asking him to go and lock up the family's beach condo for the winter, seemed like the perfect excuse for an alcohol-fueled few days away with his friends. But no sooner are the teens on the island than they find themselves stalked by a figure with an axe, and a hook, and an elbow mortar to grind. Necromantic. An employee of Joe Street Cleaning Agency, a company which cleans up after grisly accidents, Rob takes advantage of his profession to indulge in his chosen hobby, the collection of body parts. Then one day Rob brings home an entire decomposing corpse, much to the delight of girlfriend Betty. There follows a twisted love triangle, resulting in some of the most shocking scenes ever committed to celluloid. And of course, necromantic too. So Monica isn't like other young women. She shares her small flat with Rob, a recently disinterred corpse, which serves as the object of her affections. But then she meets good-natured Mark, and soon finds herself torn between the prospect of a normal life with a living, breathing partner and her overwhelming desire for her rotting bedfellow. Yeah, that's a tough choice to make. The night Evelyn came out of the grave. In the night Evelyn came out of the grave, director Emilio Miraglia melds the Giallo's trademark twisty whodunit storytelling with gothic chills, concocting a gripping horror thriller hybrid. Troubled aristocrat Alan Cunningham, haunted by the death of his first wife Evelyn, tries to move on by marrying the seductive Gladys. Marital bliss is short-lived, however, as various relatives meet untimely and gruesome deaths, prompting speculation that a vengeful Evelyn has risen from the grave. Yeah. Wide of the Eye. A serial killer is on the loose in and around the small community of Globe, Arizona, and housewife Joan White gradually comes to suspect that her opera loving hi fi engineer husband Paul might know more than he's letting on. Hmm. The wind. So, the wind. What would you do if going outside meant being killed by a raging hurricane, but staying indoors meant being hacked to pieces by a sickle wielding maniac? Also, a tough choice. Yeah. Wolf guy. Shinichi Sonic Chiba is a martial arts manimal in the ultra 70s 100% bizarre mixture of horror, action, and sci fi that is Wolf Guy. One of the rarest and most sought after cult films produced by Japan's Toei Studio, based on a manga by Kazumasa Hirai and never before released outside of Japan. It's a genre of film classic waiting to be discovered and a completely unclassifiable trip into phantasmagoric funk. Hmm? Zombie for sale. When the illegal human experiments of Korea's biggest pharmaceutical company go wrong, one of their undead test subjects escapes and ends up in a shabby gas station owned by the Park family, a band of misfits spanning 3 generations who hustle passers-by to make ends meet. When the Park family uncover their undead visitor, he bites the head of their household, who instead of transforming into an undead ghoul becomes revitalized and full of life. The family then hatch a plan to exploit this unexpected fountain of youth, allowing locals to pay to be bidden to until things go wrong. Yeah. Warning from space. As Japan is rocked by mysterious sightings of UFOs over Tokyo and large one-eyed aliens attempting contact, scientists collaborate to investigate the unexpected rise in extraterrestrial activity. Unbeknownst to them, one of the aliens has already assumed human form and is about to deliver a very important message. That could be humanity's last hope for survival. White fire. When tragedy strikes, Bo undertakes an outrageous plan involving plastic surgery and explosives to infiltrate the mine where the diamond awakes. Bo's plan hits an unexpected snag with the arrival of smooth-talking badass Noah Barclay, played by Fred Williamson. Noah's hunting for a missing prostitute, and he thinks Bo and Inga held the key to her disappearance. Okay. We are the Flash. A young brother and sister roaming an apocalyptic city take refuge in the dilapidated lair of a strange hermit. He puts them to work building a bizarre cavernous structure where he acts out his insane and depraved fantasies. Trapped in this maddening womb-like world under his malign influence, they find themselves sinking into the realms of dark and forbidden behavior. Okay. Shivers. Starliner Island is an idyllic community. Cut off from the rest of the world, the luxury apartment block affords its occupants the chance to escape from the hustle and bustle of the big city. But this isolation is to prove fatal when a new breed of parasite, a combination of aphrodisiac and venereal disease, which arouses sexual aggression in its hosts, is let loose in the building, resulting in an orgy of terror and mayhem. Shock treatment. Several years on from the events of the original Rocky Horror Picture Show, Brad and Janet Majors find their strange marriage put to the test on popular Denton TV show Marriage Maze. Poor Brad is heavily sedated and institutionalized, whilst Janet is giving a radical makeover and primed for stardom. But what are the real motivations behind the kooky DTV crew and their enigmatic head honcho, Farley Flavors? Schramm. Yes. Controversial German filmmaker Jörg Buttgereit, necromantic and necromantic too, takes you into the twisted mind of a deranged sex killer in 1993's deeply disturbing Schramm. Lothar Schramm, the so-called lipstick killer, lies dying in a pool of his own blood. As he expires, fragments of his wretched little life flash before his eyes. His uneasy friendship with the prostitute who lives next door, the brutal slaughter of a pair of doorstep evangelists whose bodies he poses in obscene fashion, his unhealthy pastime of hammering nails into his own manhood. Told in an entirely non-linear fashion, Jörg Buttgereit's Schramm, with its nightmarish hallucinatory sequences of severed limbs and gaping fang-toothed genitalia, comes about as close as a film can get to transporting you directly into the world of a sick, disordered psyche. Season of the Witch. On the surface, Joan Mitchell has it all. Family, friends, and a beautiful home equipped with all the latest appliances. But when a neighbor educates her on the practice of witchcraft, Joan believes she's discovered the perfect antidote to her monotonous suburban existence and embarks upon a dark path that will lead to a shocking conclusion. Black Rainbow. Martha Travis is a traveling clairvoyant on the road with her skeptic father. During a seance, Martha communicates a message from a dead man to his wife in the audience. Shocked, the wife insists her husband is still alive. Later that evening, the husband is killed by a ruthless assassin. As Martha foresees more and more tragic events, journalist Gary Wallace follows the pair in pursuit of a hot story with catastrophically eerie results. Bloodstone. The Bloodstone, a priceless stolen ruby, accidentally ends up in the possession of American newlyweds Sandy and Stephanie. Now their honeymoon in India is interrupted as they become the target of international fans Van Hooven and his evil henchmen. When Van Hooven kidnaps Stephanie and ransoms her for the jewel, Sandy joins forces with Cabby and dormant stunt driver Shyam Sabu to rescue his young bride. Blood Rage. Twins Todd and Terry seem like sweet boys. That is, until one of them takes an axe to the face of a fellow patriot at the local drive-in. Todd is blamed for the bloody crime and institutionalized, whilst twin brother Terry goes free. 10 years later, as the family gathers around the table for a Thanksgiving meal, the news comes in that Todd has escaped. But has the real killer in fact been in their midst all along? Blood Tide. Young couple Neil and Sherry arrive on a mysterious Greek island in search of his sister Madeline, only to receive an icy welcome from its wary and superstitious locals. Madeline herself is acting strangely, having taken up with a treasure hunter, Fry, whose exploits inadvertently awaken an ancient underwater evil that has been laying dormant on the island for centuries. The Bloodthirsty Trilogy. Yes, so this is a vampire trilogy. In The Vampire Doll, a young man goes missing after visiting his girlfriend's isolated country home. His sister and her boyfriend trace him to the creepy mansion, but their search becomes perilous when they uncover a gruesome family history. Lake of Dracula begins with a young girl suffering a terrifying nightmare of a vampire with blazing golden eyes. 18 years later, the dream is revealed to be a hellish prophecy when a strange package containing an empty coffin mysteriously turns up at a nearby lake. In Evil of Dracula, a professor takes up a new post at an all-girls school only to discover the school's principal conceals a dark secret and the pupils are in grave danger. The Burning. With, when an ill-advised prank misfires, summer camp caretaker Cropsey is committed to hospital with hideous burns. Released after 5 years, hospital officials warn him not to blame the young campers who caused his disfigurement. But no sooner is Cropsey back on the streets than he's headed back to camp with a rusty pair of shears in hand, determined to exact his bloody revenge. City of the Living Dead. A psychic buried alive, a mysterious vision, a hanged priest, and a prediction of zombie-fueled apocalypse. Can anything be done to save man from gut-munching oblivion? Who knows? The forbidden photos of a lady above suspicion. Minou leads a pampered but dull life with her frequently absent husband Peter. One night, while out walking on the beachfront, Minou is accosted by a mysterious blackmailer, who informs her that Peter is a murderer. Driven by misplaced loyalty to her husband, Minou gives in to the blackmailer's every perverted whim in exchange for his silence. But as the blackmailer ups the ante, demanding that she submit to his increasingly obscene demands, can Minou hold on to what little remains of her sanity? Jake Speed. When her sister is taken by a gang of white slavers, Margaret knows she needs a hero with a difference to bring her home. Enter Jake Speed, leaping from the pages of pulp thriller novels and into the real world. With Margaret in tow and his trusty sidekick Desmond Floyd, Jake arrives hot on the heels of the kidnappers in a southern African country gripped by civil war. But it soon turns out Jake got more than he bargained for when he discovers that the ringleader of slavers is none other than his own arch nemesis, the wicked, criminally insane Sid, John Hurt. Colobos. A group of youngsters arrive at a snow-covered house under the guise of participating in a groundbreaking new experimental film. But when the entire property fitted out with cameras to capture their every move, what initially promises to be a fun foray into reality TV stardom soon turns into a fight for survival as the youngsters find themselves trapped and at the mercy of deadly booby traps and faceless killers. Threshold. When a phone call from out of the blue brings Leo into contact with his sister, Virginia, long estranged from her family due to years of drug abuse, he arrives to find her alone in a bare apartment in the midst of an apparent overdose. After the convulsions and nausea subside, Virginia insists to Leo that she has been clean for 8 months due to the help of a mysterious group. She confides to her cynical brother that her edginess and paranoia actually stem from a sinister ritual conducted by the group that took her in at her lowest and eventually revealed themselves to be a cult. This curse bound her emotions and physical sensations to a man she has never met before. Toys are not for children. Psychological trauma and aberrant sexuality abound in this twisted 1972 tale of a young woman whose severe daddy issues send her on an unforgettable bleak downward spiral. Yearning for the love of her absentee father, Jamie inhabits an infantilized world surrounded by toys, including those which her wayward pops bizarrely continues to send her. Unable to consummate her new marriage with dashing colleague Charlie, Jamie's chance encounter with aging sex worker Pearl leads her into the murky world of prostitution, where her most disturbing erotic fantasies begin to play out. Theater of Blood. It's never been tougher to be a critic than in Theater of Blood, one of the greatest black comedies of all time. Vincent Price gives a career best performance as Edward Lionheart, a veteran Shakespearean actor who, when passed over for the coveted Critics' Circle Award for Best Actor, takes deadly revenge on the critics who snubbed him. The Villainess. So-Ki is a trained assassin who takes revenge on the men who murdered her father in a breathtaking opening sequence. After losing consciousness, she awakes at a National Intelligence Service who recruit her as an agent to undertake confidential missions. Initially refusing, So-Ki soon realizes it is her only method of escape, until she is assigned a new assignment that changes everything. Tenebrae. A razor-wielding psycho is stalking the horror writer Peter Neal in Rome to promote his latest work, Tenebrae. But the author isn't the obsessive killer's only target. The beautiful women who surround him are doomed as one by one they fall victim to the murderer's slashing blade. Rawhead Rex. When an unsuspecting farmer pulls up a stone column embedded in a barren field, he accidentally unleashes hell by awakening Rawhead Rex from his ancient slumber. The Red Queen kills 7 times. In Red Queen Kills 7 Times, an age-old family curse hits Sister Kitty and Franziska following the death of their grandfather Tobias. Every 100 years, so the legend goes, the bloodthirsty Red Queen returns and claims 7 fresh victims. Was Tobias just the first, and are Kitty and Franziska next? Here's the question. Satan's Blade. Arriving at a snow-capped mountain resort, a group of youngsters are met by the news that a double murder has taken place there the previous night. Despite this grisly revelation, they decide to stay on, unaware of the knife-wielding figure stalking the wintry landscape. Who could this be? Scalpel. Scalpel stars Lansing as Dr. Philip Reynolds, a man whose daughter, Heather, has run away following the suspicious death of her boyfriend, an incident in which Reynolds himself is implicated, leaving behind a sizable inheritance. When Reynolds happens across a young woman whose face has been brutally disfigured, the unhinged physician sees an opportunity to put his trusty scalpel to use, hatching a demented plan to lay his hands on his daughter's money. Schlock. Carnage, terror, banana skins. The mighty prehistoric ape, Schlocktroppus, has emerged from hiding to embark on a full-scale rampage across a quiet southern Californian suburb. The police are baffled. The army is powerless. The body count is rising. But when Schlocktroppus encounters a kindly blind woman who sees beyond his grotesque visage, the homicidal simian is presented with a chance at redemption. Oh. Edge of the Axe. The rural community of Paddock County is being rocked by the crazed exploits of an axe-wielding psychopath who stalks the night in a black trench coat and a mask. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Raoul Duke and his volatile Samoan attorney, Dr. Gonzo, are en route to Las Vegas, ostensibly on a banal journalistic assignment. But the suitcase full of psychoactive narcotics and their possessions tells another story. Beset by bats, horny lizards, and runaway hotel carpet upon their arrival, the pair plunged deeper in the pharmaceutical enhanced neon underbelly of the city of sin on a chemically charged savage journey to the heart of the American dream. Foxy Brown. Pam Grier was given the role of a lifetime as the street smart yet intensely sexy Foxy, modeling a stupendously varied range of 70s threads while rigorously kicking villainous white butt at every opportunity. Nice. The Funhouse. The carnival is a place for fun and laughter, but not for Amy and her friends. When their childish dare to stay all night in the spooky funhouse backfires, it leaves a trail of dismembered teenagers a mile long. You know how many bodies that is? Yeah. In Tobe Hooper's classic video, Nasty Era Slasher. Le Grand Buffet. Yes. Four friends played by international superstars Marcello Mastroianni, Ugo Tognazzi, Michel Piccoli, and Felipe Noire retreat to a country mansion where they determine to eat themselves to death. I just ate. I'm so full. I can't even think about this. Whilst engaging in group sex with prostitutes and a local school teacher, who seems to be up for anything. Oh, I can't even think about food right now. The happiness of the Katakuris. Yes. The Katakuris are a family trying to run a peaceful country inn, but with a lack of guests, there's much excitement for their first visitor until they wind up dead. As each guest in turn dies in strange circumstances, the family agreed to hide the bodies, but will the cover-ups come back to haunt them? Harpoon. Jonah, Richard, and Sasha have been friends for a long time, maybe too long. Following a ferocious bust-up, Richard tries to make amends in the form of a sailing trip on his family yacht. After all, a friendship is the kind of ship that never sinks. Or does it? The Haunted Palace. So, Ward is one of two characters played by Vincent Price, the other being Ward's great-great-great-grandfather Joseph Coven, burned as a warlock 110 years before. When Ward returned to the village of Arkham to reclaim the family mansion, his striking resemblance to his ancestor is just the first of many macabre events that proceed to unfold, including the screen debut of Lovecraft's legendary Necronomicon. Hell comes to Frogtown. Sam Hell may be an ex-con, but he also happens to be one of the last surviving fertile men on the planet. Now under the custody of a group of feisty female fighters, Sam finds himself enlisted on a mission to impregnate a harem of beauties. Sounds cushy enough, but the ladies in question are prisoners of Frogtown, home to a gang of mutant and ill-mannered amphibians. The Exorcist 3. The personal vision of Blatty, The Exorcist 3, is set 15 years after the events of the first film, and sees Lieutenant Kinderman investigate a series of horrific murders that follow the modus operandi of the notorious Gemini killer, who died several years earlier in the electric chair. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Having just quit her job as a Los Angeles TV horror hostess, Elvira receives the unexpected news that she's set to inherit part of her great aunt Morgana's estate. Arriving in the small town of Falwell, Massachusetts, to claim her inheritance, Elvira receives a less than enthusiastic reception from the conservative locals, among them her sinister Uncle Vincent, who, unbeknownst to Elvira, is in fact an evil warlock secretly scheming to steal the old family spellbook for his own nefarious ends. The Exterminator. John Eastlands has been to Nam and has seen things. Things you wouldn't believe. Surviving torture and witnessing the brutal deaths of his friends, John returns home to a tough neighborhood in New York and his loving family. But when some local thugs take a crippling dislike to his best friend's Mike, leaving him paralyzed, something snaps in John. Did he fight the Viet Cong for this? Taking the law into his own hands, Eastland sets out to clean the streets of every lowlife, good-for-nothing gangbanger, mobster, and ghetto ghoul across the city in director James Glickenhaus' brutally violent vigilante classic. Deadly Manor. Whilst en route to a lake, a group of youngsters make an unscheduled stop-off at a remote, seemingly abandoned mansion where they decide to spend the night. But the property is full of foreboding signs. A bloodstained car wreck in the garden, coffins in the basement, scalps in the closet, and photographs of a beautiful but mysterious woman adoring every corner of the house. Death Walks at Midnight. Navarro stars as Valentina, a model who, in the midst of a drug-fueled photoshoot, witnesses a brutal murder in the apartment opposite hers. But when the authorities refuse to believe that a crime has been committed, Valentina is forced to assume the role of amateur sleuth in order to unravel the mystery. Death Walks in High Heels this time. Spanish-born model and actress Nieves Navarro stars as Nicole, an exotic dancer who finds himself terrorized by a black-clad assailant determined on procuring her murdered father's stolen gems. Fleeing Paris in hope of evading her knife-wielding pursuer, Nicole arrives in England only to discover that death stalks her at every corner. Doom Asylum. When a group of horny teens wind up on the grounds of a creepy abandoned asylum, they think they found the perfect place to party. But they haven't. Little do they know that inside the building's crumbling wall lurks a freakishly deformed maniac driven to madness by tragic loss of his fiancée. The Slayer. In this chilling classic, two young couples set off to a secluded island for what promises to be a restful retreat. But the peace is short-lived. As a storm batters the island, troubled artist Kay begins to sense that a malevolent presence is here with them. Slugs. The townsfolk of a rural community are dying in strange and gruesome circumstances. Following the trail of horrifically mutilated cadavers, resident health inspector Mike Brady is on the case to piece together the mystery. He soon comes to a terrifying conclusion. Giant bugs are breeding in the sewers below and they're making a meal of the locals. The Stuff. Young Jason seems to be the only one who doesn't love the stuff. In fact, he won't go anywhere near it. After having seen the pudding crawling around the fridge one night, what's more, everyone who eats the stuff has started acting really weird. The Stylist. We all dream of being someone else, but for Claire, that dream goes from an obsession to a living nightmare. Hairstylist by day, serial killer and collector of scalps by night. Claire's lonely existence is thrown into turmoil when her regular client Olivia asks her to style her hair for her wedding day. Squirm. One of the most original and entertaining of the revenge of nature films that categorized mid-1970s American horror. Squirm begins with a pylon being downed by a thunderstorm, sending millions of volts into the wet conductive mud, which naturally gives hundreds of thousands of its wriggly inhabitants an insatiable hunger for human flesh. So that latter is how it works. Tales of Terror. In Morella, Price plays a tormented man forced to confront a dark family secret, and his long estranged daughter tracks him down. In The Black Cat, he's the rakish lover of the wife of Peter Lorre, who naturally plots a deadly revenge. And in the title role of the fact in the case of Emma Valdemar, he tries to relieve chronic pain by asking Basil Rathbone to hypnotize him, something that leaves poor Valdemar hovering on the border between the dead and the living. Hitchhike to Hell. Howard is a mild-mannered mama's boy whose job running deliveries for a dry cleaning agency affords him a lot of time out on the road. But when he happens across young runaways, particularly pretty, nubile girls, he transforms into a twitching, homicidal maniac. Hiroshima Deathmatch. Hiroshima, 1950. Demobilized kamikaze pilot Soji Yamanaka is released from prison and finds himself hungry and broke. Following a bust with a local gang, he earns the psychotic wrath of local underboss Otomi, but Yamanaka's suicidal impulses are soon put to good use as a hitman for another gang, befriending series hero Shozo Hirono in the process. Despite a budding but forbidden romance with the boss's niece, Kaiji, Yamanaka's instability and recklessness soon begin to make him a dangerous liability. Hounds of Love. In 1980s Perth, Australia, a depraved couple are abducting and murdering young women. When 17-year-old Vicky Maloney accepts a ride from the duo late one night, she finds herself catapulted into a nightmare beyond her imagining. Incident in a ghost land. The subject of a brutal home invasion along with her mother and sister several years ago, horror novelist Beth has found solace in her writing, detailing the harrowing ordeal in her latest book, Incident in a Ghost Land. But when she receives a call from her sister Vera, evidently in a state of extreme distress, Beth is prompt to return to the isolated family home where the terrifying truth of that awful night soon begins to unravel. The Incredible Melting Man. Following a mission to Saturn, spacecraft Scorpio 5 has returned to Earth, with 2 of its crew dead and the third astronaut, Steve West, in a critical condition. Critical, that is, until he rises from his bed at the research center to bite chunks out of the nurse before escaping into the surrounding countryside. Yeah. The Initiation. Kelly's sorority sisters have a special initiation in store for her and her fellow pledges, which involves a late-night break-in of her father's department store. But what begins as a harmless college prank turns sour when once inside the mall, the group find themselves locked in for the night with a deadly intruder. Death Smiles on a Murderer. Set in Austria in the early 1900s, Death Smiles and Murder stars Eva Allen as Greta, a beautiful young woman abused by her brother, Franz, and left to die in childbirth by her illicit lover, the aristocrat Dr. van Ravensbrück. The Deeper You Dig. Themes of bogus tarot card reader Ivy and her teenage daughter Echo are an unconventional but loving mother-daughter team. But when reclusive Kurt moves in down the road, a tragic accident results in Echo's murder, causing 3 lives to collide in mysterious and wicked ways. Deranged. The Confessions of a Necrophile. Robert Blossom gives an alarmingly convincing performance as rural, eccentric Ezra Cobb, whose mother's death unhinges him to the point where he not only lovingly preserves her corpse in the living room, but also goes out to find friends to keep her company. Don't Torture a Duckling. When the sleepy rural village of Axandura is rocked by a series of murders of young boys, the superstitious locals are quick to apportion blame, with the suspects including the local witch, Masiara. With the bodies piling up and the commuter gripped by panic and thirsty for bloody vengeance, 2 outsiders, city journalist Andrea and a spoiled-rich girl Patricia, team up to crack the case. Double Face. When wealthy businessman John Alexander's unfaithful wife Helen dies in a car crash, it initially looks like a freak accident. However, the plot thickens when evidence arises suggesting that the car was tampered with prior to the crash. Dream Demon. A young bride-to-be's anxieties over her upcoming wedding take on horrifying demonic form in this underseen 1988 shocker from director Harley Copeless. Dressed to Kill. After sexually frustrated housewife Kate Miller has a session with her psychiatrist Dr. Elliot, she silently seduces a man in an art gallery, an assignation that ends in murder, and the only witness, high-class prostitute Liz Blake, being stalked by the killer in turn. The Invisible Man appears. But this is 2 movies. In The Invisible Man Appears, written and directed by Nobuo Adachi in 1949, a scientist successfully creates an invisibility serum only to be kidnapped by a gang of thugs who wish to use the formula to rob a priceless jewel. 8 years later, Mitsuo Mariami's exciting The Invisible Man vs. the Human Fly tells the story of a series of mysterious murders where the only clue is a strange buzzing noise at the scene of the crime. Class of Nukem High. Welcome to State Education Trauma Style, a place where the science lab is kitted out with lasers and nudity is often compulsory. The class of Nukem High will have their work cut out surviving until the final bell, let alone graduation. Climax. Following a successful rehearsal, a dance troupe set about celebrating with a party. But when it becomes apparent that someone has spiked the sangria, the joyous atmosphere soon transforms into a nightmarish hellscape of violence and twisted carnality as the dancers begin to turn on each other in an orgiastic frenzy. Cold Light of Day. Offering a grim and gritty retelling of the story of Des Nilsson, often dubbed the British Jeffrey Dahmer, 1989's The Cold Light of Day stars Bob Flagg as Nilsson, Cypher Jordan March, delivering one of the most chilling, incredible portrayals of a serial killer ever committed to screen. The Count Yorga Collection. So this is also features 2 movies and is a vampire. 2 vampire movies. Creepshow 2. In Old Chief Woodenhead, a group of young hoodlums face retribution from an unlikely source after looting a local hardware store. Meanwhile, the raft sees a group of horny teens wishing they'd read the warning signs first before taking a dip in a remote lake. Finally, an uptight businesswoman finds herself with some unwanted company following a hit-and-run incident in The Hitchhiker. Deadly Blessing. When Martha marries into a close-knit sect, she finds herself shunned as an outsider by its fanatical members. But when her husband dies mysteriously while riding a tractor, expressly forbidden as a tool of the devil, things take a darker turn. Yeah, so that was my entire Arrow collection, except for the ones that I will show you now, the new ones that I just got like a week ago. Okay, so the first one is The Mentor. Just reviewed this, but fleeing from a cult that has left her scarred both physically and mentally, Katie is keen to get her life together. Second new one is the comic. In a dystopian police state reality of indeterminate time and place, orange bouffant-haired comedian Sam Cox is eager for his big break. Realizing that this desperate times calls for even more desperate measures, he slits the throat of his rival, Joey Myers, leaving the way clear for him to crave his own niche and the comedy circuit. Also a new one is The Last Matinee. Yes. So a cold, wet day, a declining cinema, all you want is to get out of the rain and watch a good film. But who else is in there hiding in the dark? When Anna takes over the projection duties from her ailing father, she doesn't expect anything worse than a broken reel or a burned out bulb. There's a sadistic killer in the auditorium, and soon blood is running in the aisles as he starts picking off the audience members one by one. A new to my collection is also this, Beauty. Yes. The Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge. After a year after her boyfriend's Eric's death, he burned to death in a mysterious fire. Melody vows to put her traumatic past behind her, but the past isn't ready to let Melody go. When Melody and her friends get jobs at the new mall, haunting reminders and inexplicable events begin to occur. This is also a new edition. This is the Female Prisoner Scorpion, the complete collection. Me and Jasmine will review all 4 of these movies over at our channel, Bitches of Horror. So head on over there, subscribe, and we will upload these reviews. But yeah, there are 4 movies, and they are revenge movies. This is from Arrow Academy, Magnificent Doll. Written... running out of time, sorry. So I will, I will make another video where I will go through my newest ones in more detail. But Trapped Alive. On a wintry night, friends Robin and Monica are making their way to a Christmas party when they're carjacked by a gang of crooks recently escaped from the local penitentiary. And then they fall down into a mine, being stalked by some mysterious creature. Pickup Alley. Also save this one. Then we have Malatesta's Carnival of Blood. Yes. Arriving at a creepy, dilapidated fairground under the premise of looking for work, the Norris family are hoping to track down their missing son, who they believe is somewhere in the park. And The Snake Girl and the Silver-Haired Witch. Yes. So, a young girl named Sayuri is reunited with her estranged family after years in an orphanage, but trouble lurks within the walls of the large family home. Her mother is an amnesiac after a car accident 6 months earlier. Her sullen sister is confined to a hidden attic room, and a young housemaid dies inexplicably of a heart attack just before Surya arrives. Is it all connected to her father's work studying venomous snakes? Okay, so those were the new ones that I got from the previous Arrow sale, but I will make another smaller video for just this section. But yeah, I mean, if you watched all of this, you're amazing, so thank you so much. But even if you skipped some, that's fine too. But I want to know your thoughts and comments about all of these movies. Do you have them? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Yeah, just let me know. And thank you so much for watching this huge video. But thank you so much, and I hope you're having an amazing weekend. Bye.